What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. It's transfer watch time, which means we're back looking at two of the most popular transfers in and two of the most popular transfers out ahead of Game Week 10. Game Week 9 is not even finished yet, but I think there's already quite a bit of movement. I would say the movement has slowed down in general in the transfer market. Maybe it's just one of those weeks where people are kind of waiting, and obviously there's probably less active managers now than there was at the start of the season. But still, plenty of transfers have already been made. So I'm going to discuss whether we're moving too soon, whether you've missed the boat, and whether we should be taking out the players that are being quite heavily transferred out. So listen to what I've got to say and then give your opinion in the comments below. Please do give the video a like if you enjoy it, subscribe if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. So Diogo Jota up first, another start, another goal, and he's risen to 6.6 million overnight as well. And I think it's probably quite clear to say now, when he plays, he's going to be an absolute bargain, kind of akin to Phil Foden, right? Apart from it looks like Jota is maybe going to start a little bit more regularly. Now, I've had a look in the league. He's played 392 minutes out of 630 so far since he's been at Liverpool. But I would say that the minutes he's played are starting to become more and more recently. Now, that's down to a few things, right? He started the last couple of games. They played the 4-2-4 against Man City when they had him, Firmino, Salah and Mane all on the pitch. Obviously, this week, Salah was out and not available, so it's a little bit different. And with all the injuries they've got at the moment, I mean, some people already thought that he was perhaps playing himself into that team to actually be ahead of Firmino. But with all the injuries they've got at the moment, it looks like he's probably going to start more often than not. Now, once Salah's back, that obviously doesn't leave a place in the front three. So that depends whether you think he has taken Firmino's place. I'm not quite sure about that yet. I know that Jota is scoring more goals. He's coming, I think he scored 4 and 4 at home. Firmino did finally score last night, but we know he doesn't score as many goals as he probably should. Yes, we can talk about how that's not necessarily his role, but at the end of the day, he gets plenty of chances. He should score more goals, and Jota has shown that he can do that. So whether or not he's taken Firmino's place, I'm not quite sure. How often they're going to play 4-2-4? I'm not really too sure about that either. 4-3-3 for Liverpool is kind of tried and tested. It's one in the league, it's one in the Champions League. They play extremely well. What I would say for Jota, talking about the injuries, is not necessarily injuries to the front three, like to Salah, Mane, Firmino, or rest that might be needed. But it's also behind them as well. They've got quite a few midfielders out of place. Obviously, with Van Dijk and Gomez out, Fabinho is played alongside Matip. So that's one less centre midfielder. Keita's got injured last night. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. Milner was covering at right back. We don't know when Henderson's going to be back. It sounds like it's probably going to be quite soon. But all these things are just weighing up to more and more of Jota getting more of a start. So stats are looking pretty good. He's like 0.52 or 0.53 expected goals per 90 when he starts, which is a decent return, right? And when you're 6.6 million playing regularly for Liverpool, then it's looking good. And Klopp will find it quite hard to drop him. The thing I like is the fixtures, really, and the fact that this is just a hunch, but I feel like he probably has got more of a chance of playing minutes than Foden has, because Jota can kind of play anywhere in the front three, right? Whereas Foden, once they've got their number 9 back, you feel like Sterling's absolutely nailed on. So Foden's only got that right spot, whereas Jota can play anywhere, and also they can play with kind of 4 up front essentially, or 4 forwards on the pitch. But fixtures-wise, they've got Brighton, Fulham, Palace, and West Brom in the next 6, which is decent, right? If he gets good minutes in all those, then it could be some big returns for that price. I feel like for the price, you're not really putting too much of a risk. Like, he's not like he's 9-10 million and you're kind of banking on him getting some starts. He's only 6.6 million. We could see a situation like Foden at some point where he starts getting benched for multiple games in a row, and that would be massively frustrating. But I'm just not sure that's going to happen right now. When you're comparing him at that price, there's not too many options in midfield at that price. And then it's really the likes of Bamford and Watkins and Callum Wilson up front that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So I feel like the move is a little bit risky, but there's probably enough upside that it could be worth the risk. So if you're that kind of FPL manager that likes someone a little bit punty like this, who's basically scoring plenty of goals for the best team in the league, then why not? 6.6 million looks like a bargain. So this man, Bruno Fernandes, cannot stop scoring points. Another penalty, 11 points in total. He took the 3 bonus points as well. And to be fair, look, we won't go into the whole, is it luck, is it skill? At the end of the day, Bruno Fernandes has been brought in because he's got penalties and he keeps continually getting points. And he did it against the weakest, or one of the weakest teams in the league. There's nothing to be surprised about, really. You could say maybe it was a little bit of a luck to get penalty, but penalties happen, right? So you can't keep writing that off. And to be fair, he could have had more points. If Martial and Rashford had their shooting boots on, I can tell you as a Rashford owner, completely frustrating, he could have had even more points if some assists had gone his way as well. So I think 11 points was fair, right? You bring a player in as a captain, they get 11 points. You've got to be happy with that, so that was decent. keep bringing him in now, right? So he was on the Transfer Watch video last week. Now, he had a lot more transfers because it was West Brom. People were getting rid of Salah, etc. It slowed down quite a bit, but he still had nearly 82,000 transfers in at the time of recording this. And I feel like maybe, I wouldn't say people have missed the boat, but a lot of people got him in for that West Brom game for captain, right? So he's still got some good fixtures, and you could still captain him. I'm just not sure he's the best captain for the next kind of 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8 game weeks, right? Now, maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe he's going to keep getting these penalties, keep getting goals from open play, assists, etc. But if you look at the fixtures, so he's got Southampton away up next. Good fixture. If you've got him, absolutely you hold, and maybe you do consider captaining him. But Vardy plays Fulham. I think that's a better option. And Salah and Mane have got Brighton away as well, so they could be better options too. And then game week 12, he's got another good fixture, West Ham away. But Sterling and De Bruyne have got Fulham at home. Now, I won't get into a discussion about how good City may or may not be. That is a good fixture, right? Fulham like to leak goals. They just got conceded 3 to Everton. We've seen other teams turn them over, like Leeds put 4 past them. So who's to say that Sterling and De Bruyne will not do the same, right? That's a great fixture. So that's another good captaincy. So you don't have to bring him in just for captaincy, but it's worth considering because that's why a lot of people did this week. I think that's the big difference I'm trying to kind of make. And after that, it's Man City. So I don't think he's a bad buy by any stretch. I just don't think he's as good a buy as he was last week. So he could still be a long-term hold, and if you can get all the other players that you want and you've got your captains in place or you're happy to captain Fernandes, then still really good buy for 10.8 million. Like, I keep looking at his open goal play threat, and it still wasn't that great against West Brom, but he's heavily involved in absolutely everything Man United do, and I can't keep kind of, and not that I ever wrote him off, but I just thought for his price he maybe wasn't worth it, and he's probably shown me that he is. The points keep ticking over, so he's a good buy. I would just consider kind of the next couple of fixtures versus who you actually want to captain in them before you go and buy him. So with the transfers out, there wasn't a huge amount of players that were massively transferred out. I mean, 50,000 is still quite a few when you consider that, talked about Bruno Fernandes with 80,000 in, but a lot of them, like more heavily transferred out players, are obvious. It's like Trent Alexander-Arnold being transferred out again. We know he's not playing. We know he's injured. We're just waiting for him to come back. It will be interesting to see if people bring him back in, but for now, there's no point in talking about that. So I've gone with Lamptey, 49,465 transfers out. Not good. 2 yellow cards, 1 red card. What that does mean, though, is he's only going to miss 1 game. It's not like it was like a horrendous tackle where he's going to be out for 3 games. So he should only be out for 1 game. And it's Liverpool at home, right? So I don't know about you, but anytime any of my players, even if they're premium attacking options, they play against Liverpool, they play against Man City, I don't expect points. So had I had to have played Lamptey this week, I would have expected 2 points. Anything else would have been a bonus. So it's not really the end of the world that he's missing this game. And the fixtures afterwards are quite good, right? Southampton, Leicester, Fulham, Sheffield United and West Ham. Now, Leicester's going to be difficult. Southampton could be difficult, and West Ham could be difficult as well. But for me, I look at those fixtures, those 5 fixtures. I'd say Fulham and Sheffield United, good chance of a clean sheet. And if they had a good chance in maybe one of the other ones, so West Ham, Leicester, or Southampton, that's okay. 2 or 3 clean sheets in the next 5. It's Brighton, so maybe we shouldn't expect that much, but I think it's possible, and we know how good he is for attacking returns. Now, I went a bit early on the old attacking returns when I tweeted at the weekend that at some point this season, Lamptey's going to get an 18-pointer, so a goal, an assist, and a clean sheet and 3 bonus points. To be fair, he only got -1, so I did kind of tweet a little bit early, but I do think he's got that in his locker. And before this game week, Brighton were limiting the number of shots that their opponents were taking. So before game week 9 happened, they conceded the least amount of shots in the box, which is really impressive when you consider like Man United and Man City, etc., have played 1 less game. And the previous 4 game weeks was only 12 shots in the box. Now, I will say they did concede 8 shots in the box against Aston Villa. But Aston Villa at the moment are getting a lot of shots against most teams as well. So we maybe shouldn't write Brighton defence off for that. I wouldn't expect, maybe Leicester, potentially Southampton. But the rest of them, I don't know if they're going to pose that much of a threat. Like West Ham will depend on Antonio, for example. So for me, like if you're playing a kind of team or a squad where Lamptey's in your 3 defenders or 4 defenders, however many you're playing every week, and you have to play him every week, then okay, maybe you swap him out. Maybe you go for like a Soufal at West Ham or something like that. Leeds defenders, Calvin Phillips is back now. Leeds have got some pretty good fixtures, although not starting from this week necessarily. So you could look elsewhere. But for me, if he's just a bench option, like why would you get rid of him? You're just benching like you probably should have been trying to do anyway because it's Liverpool at home. And then the fixtures afterwards are quite good. We know he's attacking. 4.8 million still seems like a bargain. So I think people are being a a bit premature with these transfers unless they absolutely need to get rid of him. So last up, we've got Callum Wilson, 36,000 transfers out. Obviously, massively frustrating if you kept hold of him because Steve Bruce did say there was a chance that he'd be available and he didn't end up being in the squad. Now, that would worry me a little bit because sometimes, like, if a player's been out for a little bit, you want them in the squad to then come on off the bench, hoping that then they'll start the next game. So the fact he wasn't in the squad at all would probably be a little bit of a worry, right? But I think it's worth holding on at least and not transferring out too early to see what Steve Bruce says for the next game week anyway. So against Chelsea, look, they maybe would have had more chances Newcastle if Wilson had been in the team. And St Maximin, to be fair, did cause them a little bit of trouble. But ultimately, I wouldn't have been expecting too many points against Chelsea. The real fixtures start now for Callum Wilson, right? It's a really good run for him. Palace away, Villa away, West Brom at home, Leeds away and Fulham at home. So Fulham, West Brom, Villa, decent fixtures. Villa do give up quite a few chances. And Palace and Leeds isn't bad either, especially with Leeds. It kind of depends what Leeds defence turns up. But I think it's worth holding on at least for the press conference. And again, don't transfer him out too early. I guess the only worry is you'll get to the press conference and Steve Bruce will say, yeah, there was a little bit of a thing last week and now there is another chance he'll start. What you want him to say is he's fit and available and I will select him. Probably not going to say that, or I could select him if I wanted to, something like that. So if you've held on this long, I definitely would consider keeping him. If you want to get rid, then okay. If you're staying in the same bracket, I still think it's the same players we're looking at, right? Because Antonio's in the same boat where he hasn't featured in the squad yet, so we don't know if he's going to start from the off even when he is available. So I think it's just Bamford and Watkins that we should really be looking at given the kind of form, fixtures, underlying numbers and just the amount of points they've been getting. So that's where I would be looking. Even if you went up in price, I'm not sure there's too many options until you get to a Jamie Vardy. So maybe if you've got money in the bank, to go for Vardy or Werner, someone like that, that could be worth doing. But ultimately, I think this is a hold for me. Like, if he does play this weekend, then he's got he's probably got the best run of fixtures out of all cheap strikers at the moment. And if they were all fit, he would be the one I probably want this week in that kind of price range. But I fully get that if you're an owner, it's a little bit hard to hear that because you're thinking, well, he didn't get in the squad and he might not start next week. So for me, if you're not too worried about price changes for him or other players and stuff like that, then I would definitely wait for the press conference. Stop transfer him out. Wait and see what Steve Bruce says. Thanks very much for watching. Please do give it a like if you enjoyed it and leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about the players I've talked about. Are people right to be transferring them in, right to be transferring them out? Is Diogo Jota just a bargain that we should all be looking to get into our teams as it stands? Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you know when everything else is going live. We'll have Captaincy Scoutcast tomorrow, and we've got team selections, team news, all that good stuff coming later on in the week. So hit subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll catch you again soon.